I think the biggest guy regression-wise has been Adolis Garcia. There's just a lot of indicators that suggest this is not just a slump, but maybe some long-term issues here.
He is, I don't know how many times at this point, but one of the leaders in the clubhouse. Why are you shaking your head?
Because Caglione just hit another damn homer. He hits a home run every time that he gets up.
Is that 80 for his career?
75, but he's really only played 2 years. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, because he missed his freshman year. Anyway.
Yeah.
Florida's beating the crap out of Kentucky right now.
Yeah.
It's 15
Poor
to
babies.
4. But anyway, let's bring in our friend. Let's
Poor
talk about
babies.
Poor babies. They are showing a Kentucky fan crying. All right, Evan Grant, Dallas Morning News. Let's talk Rangers ball right now. Evan, how are
Anything
you?
other than Florida baseball or Florida football would be just great.
I can handle that. Let's talk Texas.
Hey, listen,
baseball.
Wyatt Langford hit his first home run over the fence last night, so we're going to talk Florida baseball.
That's true.
Big moment for him and hopefully for the Rangers. I think he's made a couple of adjustments over the last 10 days or so that the Rangers are hoping makes a difference.
Would you say that Langford and Carter not contributing much this year has been the biggest disappointment for Texas, or is there something else?
Man, Scott, that's a great question because I think you can go up and down the lineup and find so many areas where they haven't performed. I would hesitate to say Carter and Langford have been the biggest disappointment, only because there was no track record really there. You know, you had 3 weeks with Evan Carter last year. I think the biggest guy regression-wise has been Adolis Garcia. It's not looked good for over a month here. It's been a real long stretch, and this is the guy who is the heartbeat of this team. He's the emotional heartbeat of this team. They feed off his energy, and every metric I look at right now, he's missing fastballs in the middle of the zone. His bat speed has slowed down as this year has gone on. There's just a lot of indicators that suggest this is not just a slump, but maybe some long-term issues here.
Was there any, because we put no stock in spring training, 0, because Wyatt Langford hit 10 dingers and he was the best player ever in spring training. Not saying he shouldn't have made the team, but even with Adolis, like, was there something that you could see or that the team could see going into spring? Like, woof, these guys look tired. It was a long season last year.
No, I don't think so. I mean, listen, Eric, on Langford, it's hard to say you never make too much out of spring training. These were basically his first professional at-bats of any type. You know, he had a couple of months in the minor leagues last year, but everything he did in the spring training just boomed off the bat. It sounded like a jet was taken off from the Air Force Base across the street. As far as Garcia went, I think the Rangers really paced him slow in spring training because of, A, how much he played last year, and how much he did wear down kind of in August and September, and also because he was coming off of that oblique issue. So they paced him, and then he came out in April, and he really raked. And I do think, look, Adolis has said in as many words, the biggest issue of my career has always been, how do I not chase the fastball up and out of the zone? I think he started doing that when this lineup was scuffling a little bit. I think that led to some bad habits. And now I think maybe there is some level of fatigue that's set in on top of all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Evan, let's get to the pitching. So who do you think will make the biggest impact in the second half of the season for Texas that, you know, either hasn't pitched at all or hasn't pitched much this year? And really, is that enough? I mean, we've been using that narrative for a while, but the problem at this point is, okay, maybe Scherzer or DeGrom or both come back and they pitch really well. I mean, they don't play every day. And by the time I know Scherzer's coming back this weekend, but by the time those two are cranking, I mean, they could be 10 games out of a playoff spot.
Yeah, I think they're 5 games back of the last wild card spot right now, and that certainly is more of a realistic assumption than the AL West being 9 games back. And look, Seattle looked better than them in just about every element of the game over the weekend. AJ, I think you saw that. The Rangers pitched well against Seattle. Seattle's pitching was better. Seattle had big 2-out hits. The Rangers did not. Seattle had big walks to extend innings. The Rangers did not. So I think that was it was pretty clear this weekend that right now the Mariners are certainly a notch above the Rangers. As far as the pitching staff goes, it's hard for me to say who's going to have the biggest impact because I don't know if this team gets too far out. Just like you said, Scott, is there an impact to be made? What do they do if they get to the All-Star break and this team is 8-9 games back in the wild card spot with no answers about the offense? Because they're not going to go out and acquire a needle mover on the offensive side. The best bet they have to get this offense right is to get Josh Young back, get Evan Carter back, get their opening day lineup on the field for the first time this year, and hopefully they feel like they take off at that point. But I think as far as the pitching goes, if you get Scherzer back this week like you should, and you get Tyler Mahle back around the All-Star break, maybe right afterwards, you're going to start sliding a couple of guys into the bullpen. And for all we've talked about how much the offense has struggled, if you look at this team, look at last night in the Mets game. They brought Jose Leclerc into the 7th inning to replace Michael Lorenzen, who had pitched really well, and Leclerc could not work through the 7th inning. The 7th inning has been the Rangers' biggest issue all year. I think they've been outscored by more than 40 runs in the 7th inning alone. Part of that suggests that the offense isn't making adjustments as the game goes on and certainly isn't ready for relievers when they come in. But the other part is they've allowed the most runs in the big leagues in the 7th inning, and so they need some help in the middle of the bullpen. Moving Jose Urena back there was a help. Getting Josh Sborz back will be a help, which they hope to have maybe by the end of this week. And then when you start talking about maybe moving a Heaney or a Gray or a Dunning into the bullpen as well, you're really adding to the ability to try and close games down without letting teams back in.
Hey, first of all, before I get deep into something, which nickname do you like better, Uncle Fester or Columbo?
Elvis called me Uncle Fester for a long time, though. He kind of pronounced it Feaster, which I liked. Columbo is fine. Anybody from a 60s or 70s TV show I'll answer to, because that's kind of my deal.
Because it definitely ain't Fonzie, that's for sure.
Wait, what does Columbo mean for me and many others?
Columbo is an old TV guy, detective, bald detective.
So the other thing is, like, these are all nicknames that Bochy gave to AJ while AJ was in Seattle this weekend. And everything that Bruce has is basically from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. His favorite TV show is Gunsmoke, of course. And he had come up with Columbo because I kept coming back and asking a question at the end of everything. And he compared it to Peter Falk as Columbo coming back and going, I got one more question for you. And then Uncle Fester, I think it speaks for itself since I look like a giant egg.
Okay, so, yeah, and by the way, when we're having our time with Bochy, just quit knocking on the door and stay the fuck out, please, because you get your time when we're done, so let's try to just let us have our 15 minutes of fun with Bochy where we're talking about things that you wouldn't understand.
That's true. That's true, because I've spent the last 2 hours trying to understand what's going on with this offense.
FT is headed to the MLB All-Star Game this year, and there's only one way you should be finding tickets for any ball game. SeatGeek is the official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, so they have you covered for all of your baseball ticket needs.
I'm super pumped to hit the Futures game this year. That new skills competition looks electric.
I agree, Kratz. It's like the Olympics for baseball. Cannot wait to see that. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. Baseball season's in full swing, and you don't want to miss out. SeatGeek has your tickets to every game and, of course, concerts, festivals, and more.
Every ticket's backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps.
And Kratz, FT came through for the people. Use our code FOUL for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code FOUL. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app, please.
I talked to Tim Hires, even Bochy mentioned it. How do we hit a four-seam? I've never been around a team that can't hit a four-seam fastball. So what is it? Because Adolis Garcia used to be able to crush them, right? Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, these were dudes that hit fastballs.
And you're right, and he's not. And I went back and I looked this morning at like four-seamers in the heart of the zone, pitches that guys should absolutely crush. and the Rangers have the lowest slug and the lowest expected slug on those pitches. Those are pitches that they should do damage on, and they are either late, as I think Adolis has been on a number of them. I think he's hitting one. This is amazing. He's hitting 147 on four-seam fastballs in the middle of the zone. It just defies explanation. As I said, his bat speed has slowed down a little bit from April to May and into June. I think it's now about 71.5 miles per hour, which is a little bit below average. But yes, this is what guys are doing. Teams are taking advantage of the fact that the Rangers cannot hit fastballs right now. I think they hit 260 on four-seamers last year. They're hitting 228 on four-seamers at the start of this, as of the start of this week this year. There is a precipitous drop there, and I think you point to Adolis as being the biggest. Leody Taveras has struggled with them. Nate Lowe has always struggled with fastballs. Jonah Heim has struggled with fastballs this year. That's half your lineup right now.
And are they going through drills? Do you see them doing something on the field? Like, I know they practice every day, but is there like more of a concerted effort?
I listen, you know, Kratzy, one of the things that's hard for me to understand now is how BP works anymore. It used to be guys would be out on the field at 2:30 taking their early BP, and then at 4:30 taking their regular BP. Guys, a lot of guys don't come out now because they spend all the time in the cage taking game speed pitches and game speed type or game simulated breaking balls. So you don't see nearly as much. This team puts the work in. I don't think there's any question about the team putting the work in. The question I have is, did a number of guys have outlier career years last year? And do you have one guy who was a late bloomer in Garcia who has hit a wall and is starting to tail off? Those are all real-time concerns for the Rangers, and I don't think they have an answer to it right now. And the one good thing that they've got going is, look, as far back as they are, I keep saying this to people, 91, I think there's 90 games left for the Rangers right now. There's still more than half the season to go. If they can get hot for a month, if those guys can find their way back in, that offense still has some degree of a track record that it can roll off some wins in a row.
How good are the Mariners? You just saw them for 3 days. They dominated a team that you've alluded to is struggling, but are the Mariners really good, and are they better than they were last year?
The pitching is outstanding. And I do think, look, they've won. They were 17-7 in one-run games at the end of the weekend. So I know what every analyst will say, that's a lot. There's a lot of luck involved in that. But look, when you've got good pitching, it keeps you in games. You've got good relief pitching. It doesn't allow games that are close to get away from you. And I think the Mariners do a really good job defensively, so they don't give teams free runs. And you've got some guys in that lineup who can run into a ball, who can do a little bit of damage. They strike out too much. That is an issue, but that's a really good pitching team. And as AJ alluded to, they're the deepest. You alluded to it, Eric. They're the deepest pitching staff in the American League right now. And the only question I have is kind of to what AJ was talking about with Garrett Crochet earlier. This team has the most rotation innings so far in Major League Baseball. Will the Mariners butt up against some fatigue and some second half issues with this kind of workload for their starting pitchers?
All right, Evan, I need your top 3 best players of all time. Obviously, with Willie Mays passing, I have him in my top 3, but who is your top 3 all time?
Are we talking all time or a living now?
All time. Ever playing baseball?
All time. Listen, I think you'd probably go Mays, Ruth, because Babe changed the game. And the third player, probably for me, is going to be a personal preference more than it's going to be something that look, the third player for me is always going to be Henry Aaron. I think he belongs on any Mount Rushmore of baseball players because of the longevity, because of the power, because of how consistent he was. There were better fielders longer in their career, but for me, that's probably the 3. Who did you already do yours?
That was my 3. That was my 3. Yep. It was Ruth first. I have Ruth first, and then
Mays did everything so well and for so long. It's and the shame of it is for all of us, right? We never got to see those guys day in and day out. And I think I tweeted something late last night about the generation that came before us. Imagine if they had had the access to TV that we have now and had seen in the prime of their careers Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Henry Aaron, and Roberto Clemente all playing outfield among in the big leagues. It's mind-boggling to me that level of talent all playing at the prime of their career at the same time.
It's a good call. Evan, you crushed it as always. Thank you for the time. You're just
AJ didn't give us his top 3 because I know he's got himself at number 2.
One
actually. Thank you.
Humility there. I thought you were a humble fella.
No, screw that.
Tell him.
I went Ruth 1 just because of the pitching and the home runs, and he changed his sport. So he's got to be 1, and people can make an argument. You can argue, whatever you want to argue. But for me, because he pitched and because he hit he hit more home runs than teams did back when there were no home runs.
He changed.
He completely changed baseball, right? And then for me, I'm going to go Willie 2, and then Hank 3, just because Willie played defense, like you said, and I loved Hank, and growing up a Braves fan and getting to meet Hank was unbelievable. But to me, Willie, defense, longevity, everything that Willie brought, and getting to know Willie and the joy he brought was 2, and then Hank's 3 for me.
You got to spend a little bit of time around him in San Francisco when you were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I showed my autographed Willie Mays ball, the only one I have that's in Sharpie.
Yeah,
because he thought it looked better than ballpoint, so he signed it in Sharpie for me.
He had an office too, right? Didn't he have an office at the park? I think Bochy said he had a little office.
He didn't when I was there.
Oh, okay.
But he was there. He would just come and sit in the dining room with us.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's great. What Tim Flannery said is he'd come into like the dining area, sit down, and then just basically hold court with the coaches and any players that came by. Imagine that, right? Just that generation coming through and giving you that kind of baseball knowledge for baseball rats like you guys. I mean, what an opportunity that must have been.
For sure. He was awesome.
Also, confidence boost. You feel like you're a baller.
No, you feel like shit when you listen to him talk.
But also, don't you feel like a baller if you're in the Giants clubhouse and you're like, yeah, we get to hang with Willie Mays? Like, doesn't that kind of...
Yeah, I mean, McCuffey would come around a little bit too, so... I mean, it was pretty awesome. I mean, listen, you play for some teams, you start meeting some people. I mean, Pudge was there every day in Texas.
Yeah.
When I was there, right? You go to the Red Sox, and I mean, the Cardinals were unbelievable. They had, this guy and this guy. I mean, Shandice was there every day. I mean, he was literally there every day. I mean, he's a pretty good player.
But some teams didn't have that.
No.
Or still don't have that.
No.
Some teams don't have great relationships with their, former players. I know that was a big thing with the Mets. When the new group took over, they were like, hey, the old group was not treating some of the vets well. And so they just said, screw it, we're not coming anymore. And now they're starting to trickle back in. So anyway, we can go on and on. Evan, you're the man. Appreciate you.
All right, I'll clear out of the way. I know you got Costas coming on to wax poetically, so that'll be awesome. People should.
That is true. That is true. Bob coming up in about 10. Thanks, Evan. Scotty B here from FT. 1 in 5 Americans have learn a new language on their bucket list, and you should make 2024 the year you finally check it off the list with Babbel. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations.
Kratz here. Brawny, you know what I'm doing? I'm working on my Spanish so that I can get my pronunciation and accent game to the next level. Babbel's speech recognition technology makes that happen.
Good job, Kratz. So here's a special limited time deal for FT listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for FT listeners. Again, that's up to 60% off at babbel.com/foul, spelled BABBEL.com/FOUL. Rules and restrictions may apply. With Babbel, you can learn everything you need to have real-world conversations, and all it takes is just 10 minutes a day.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.